Review of Unit 1. Unit 1 covers basic concepts of economics, which includes meaning of economics, three fundamental questions of economics, factors of production, trade-offs and opportunity costs, cost and benefit at the margin or making a rational choice, micro versus macroeconomics, normative versus positive economics, role of assumptions or ceteris paribus, economic model and economic policy. Meaning of economics. Economics is the study of how individuals and societies satisfy their unlimited wants with limited resources. Therefore, economics is the study of choices. Scarcity and choice. Choice is the center to the use of scarce resources. Our inability to get anything we want is called scarcity. This is the fundamental problem that all societies face. It refers to excessive human wants or what can actually be produced to fulfill these wants. Human wants are unlimited. On the other hand, the means of fulfilling these wants are limited because the resources available are limited. As a result, choices have to be made. Three fundamental questions of economics. Scarcity necessitates choice. As a result, all societies, independently of their level of economic development or the economic system adopted, must answer the following three questions. What will be produced and in what quantities? Will it produce mainly food or agricultural goods or manufacturing goods such as automobiles, television, computers, or to produce more of service products such as IT services, banking services, etc.? This first fundamental economic question involves not only what to produce but also how much to produce. Societies must review what their wants are at any time. A country at war, for example, will choose to produce more weapons than it would during peacetime. How will each goods and services be produced? Using, for example, a labor-intensive or capital-intensive technology. For whom will goods and services be produced? The third fundamental economic question involves how goods and services are distributed among people in society. This actually involves two questions. Exactly how much should people get and how should their share be delivered to them? Should everyone get an equal share of the goods and services? Or should a person's share be determined by how much he or she is willing to pay? Once the question of how much has been decided, societies must then decide exactly how they're going to get these goods and services to people. To do this, societies develop distribution system which include road and railway systems, seaports, airports, trucks, trains, ships, aeroplanes, computer, anything networks that help roads and services from producers to consumers in an efficient manner. Factors of production. Factors of production are the economic resources required to produce goods and services. There are four factors of production. Land includes all the natural resources found on or under the ground that are used to produce goods and services. Water, forest, and all kinds of wildlife belong in the category of land. So too do buried deposits of minerals, gas, and oil. Labor is all the human time, effort, and talent that go into the making of products. Labor then is not only the work done by garbage collectors, factory workers, construction workers, it also includes the work of architects, teachers, doctors, sales clerks, and government officials. Capital is all the resources made and used by people to produce and distribute goods and services. Tools, machinery, and factories are all forms of capital. So are offices, warehouses, stores, roads, and aeroplanes. In other words, capital is all of a producer's physical resources. For this reason, capital is sometimes called physical capital or real capital. Capital does not mean money in economics. While businesses invest in real capital, workers invest in human capital, the knowledge and skills gained through experience. Human capital includes such things as a college degree or good job training. When workers possess human capital, they are more productive. Entrepreneurship involves vision, skill, and risk taking needed to create and run businesses. Trade offs and opportunity cost. Trade off. A choice is a trade off. Trade off are all the alternatives that we give up whenever we choose one course of action over another. Individual decisions involve trade offs. If you choose to spend more time at work, you give up watching a movie or going to a baseball game. The decision business people make about how to use land, labor, and capital resources also create trade offs. A manufacturer who decides to use all our equipment to build chairs eliminates the possibility of building tables or desks at the same time. Countries also make decisions that involve trade offs. In short, a country that decides to produce more military goods, guns, has fewer resources to devote to consumer goods, butter, and vice versa. Opportunity cost. Whenever individual business or governments decide on a course of action, they face many trade offs. One alternative, though, is usually more desirable than all others. The most desirable alternative given up as a result of a decision is called opportunity cost. It is the next best alternative foregone. For example, if a family buys a computer, family members cannot use the same money to pay for their second choice going on a trip. The trip then is the opportunity cost of buying the computer. Cost and benefit at the margin of making a rational choice. When economists look at decisions, they point out one more characteristic in addition to opportunity cost. Many decisions involve adding 1 unit or subtracting 1 unit, such as 1 minute or $1. Thinking at the margin means you are thinking about using one additional unit. Economists view the choices that people make as rational. A rational choice is one that compares cost and benefit and achieves the greatest benefit over cost for the person making that choice. The benefit that arises from an increase in an activity is called marginal benefit. The opportunity cost of an increase in an activity is called marginal cost. Comparing opportunity cost and benefits at the margin could help someone decide how much money to spend on a car, how many hours to work, and how much time to spend watching television. Employers think at the margin when they decide how many extra workers to hire. Legislators think at the margin when deciding if the government program should include more of a particular benefit. Decision makers just have to compare the opportunity cost and the benefits, what they will sacrifice, what they will gain. Once the opportunity cost outweighs the benefit, no more units should be added. Micro versus macroeconomics. Microeconomics, the branch of economics that examines the functioning of individual industries and the behavior of individual decision making units, that is, firms and households. Examples are: should I go to college or get a job after high school? What government policies should be adopted to make it easier for low income students to attend college? What determines the number of iPhones exported to France? Macroeconomics, the branch of economics that examines the economic behavior of aggregates, unemployment rate, the inflation rate, the gross domestic product on a national scale. Examples are: how many people are employed in the economy as a whole this year? What determines the overall level of prices in the economy as a whole? What government policies should be adopted to promote employment and growth in the economy as a whole? What determines the overall trade in goods and services and financial assets between the United States and the rest of the world? Normative versus positive economics. Positive statements. A positive statement is about what is. It tries to describe what exists and how it works. Positive economics attempts to understand behavior and the operation of economic unit systems without making judgments about whether the outcomes are bad or good. What determines the wage rate for unskilled workers? What should happen if we abolish the corporate income tax? A positive statement might be right or wrong, but we can test it by checking it against the facts. Our planet is warming because of the amount of coal that we are burning is a positive statement. We can test whether it is right or wrong. Normative statement. A normative statement is about what ought to be. It depends on values and cannot be tested. Policy goals are normative statements. For example, we ought to cut our use of coal by 50%. Normative statement, you may agree or disagree with it, but you can't test it. It doesn't assert a fact that it can be checked. An approach to economics that analyzes outcomes of economic behavior, evaluates them as good or bad, and may prescribe courses of action, also called policy economics. Examples are: should the government subsidize and regulate the cost of higher education? Should medical benefits to the elderly under Medicare be available only to those with incomes below some threshold? Should the United States allow importers to sell foreign produced goods that compete with US made products? Should we reduce or eliminate taxes? The role of assumption or ceteris paribus. It is usually true that whatever you want to explain with a model depends on more than one factor. Assumptions can simplify the complex world and make it easier to understand. Ceteris paribus, or all else equal, a device used to analyze the relationship between two variables while the values of other variables are held unchanged. To study the effects of international trade, for example, we might assume that the world consists of only two countries and that each country produces only two goods. In reality, there are numerous countries, each of which produces thousands of different types of goods. But by assuming two countries and two goods, we can focus on the essence of the problem. Once we understand international trade in this simplified world, we are in a better position to understand international trade in the more complex world in which we live. Economic models. Models are used to test theories. A theory is a simplified representation of how two or more variables interact with each other. The purpose of a theory is to take a complex real world issue and simplify it down to its essentials. Economic policy. An economic policy is a course of action that is intended to influence or control the behavior of the economy. Economic policies are typically implemented and administered by the government. Economic policies generally strives to achieve these four goals. Efficiency. In economics, efficiency means allocative efficiency. An efficient economy is one that produces what people want at the least possible cost. If the system allocates resources to the production of goods and services that nobody wants, it is inefficient. If all members of the particular society were vegetarians and somehow half of all that society's resources were used to produce meat, the result would be inefficient. When a company recognizes its production or adopts a new technology that enables it to produce more of its product with fewer resources without sacrificing quality, it has made an efficient change. At least potentially, the resources saved could be used more of something. Equity or fairness implies a more equal distribution of income and wealth. Fairness may imply alleviating poverty, but the extent to which the poor should receive cash benefits from the government is a subject of enormous disagreement. Economic growth is an increase in the total output of an economy if output grows faster than the population. Output per person rises and standard of living increase. Stability. Economic stability refers to the condition in which national output is growing steadily with low inflation and full employment of resources. Chapter summary. Economics is the study of how individuals and societies satisfy their unlimited wants with limited resources. Scarcity is our inability to get everything we want. Three big questions of economics: what, how, and for whom to produce. Four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Trade off and opportunity cost. A choice is a trade off. The next best alternative foregone is opportunity cost. Cost and benefit at the margin or making a rational decision. Thinking at the margin means you're thinking about using one additional unit. A rational choice is one that compares cost and benefits and achieves the greatest benefit over for the person making the choice. Microeconomics versus macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of individual, households, and firms' behavior in decision making and allocation of resources. Macroeconomics looks at the economy as a whole, or the study of aggregates like unemployment, inflation, exports, and imports. Positive versus normative economics. A positive statement is about what is, a normative statement is what ought to be. The role of assumptions are ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus, or all else equal, a device used to analyze the relationship between two variables while the values of other variables are held unchanged. Economic variable models. Models are used to test theories, which is a simplified representation of how two or more variables interact with each other. Economic policy tries to achieve four goals: efficiency, equity, growth, stability.